Sasquatch, the rake, flat earth, chemtrails, the vril lizards, 9/11, conspiracy. Rebel Angel Radio. Truth is pain. It's about to hurt. A lot. Enjoy. Thank you for tuning in to Rebel Angel Radio. If you have an encounter story, you want to talk, you want to be on the radio, or just send me a message, hit me up at rebelangelradio@gmail.com. It's rebelangelradio@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. We'll get back to you and we'll see if you want to be on the show. If so, we'll set up a time. If not, we can just chat, or you can tell me a story, or I can tell it for you if you feel comfortable that way. Either way, I'd love to hear from you guys. We need to spread the truth. Nothing but love up in here, guys. Rebel Angel Radio. Truth is pain. Hey everybody, welcome to Rebel Angel Radio. This is your host, Buer Silver. Today I have a kind of different direction I'm going to go in. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about something people are calling gangstalking. Now, this is something that I find very interesting because I had an experience that I believe might be exactly what this is. About 3 years ago, I started noticing that everywhere I went, I had an F-150, a black F-150, and I'd be driving that all over the place. I was working at a delivery place, and then a lot of time on my time off, I would just drive around. And I like to go different places, and I just enjoyed driving the truck. Living up here in Canada, I don't really know anybody, so I don't have any friends or anyone I go hang out with, so I spend a lot of time alone. And so I'd be driving around, and I started to notice that I was seeing the same cars over and over and over again. And some people say they're white cars, some people say that they're black cars or SUVs. I didn't really notice anything except that the model. It was always like a certain model. I can't remember what it was now. I think it was, at the time, I believe it was Mercedes. But I would see the same, I'd see like, instead of random cars, I'd see Mercedes after Mercedes after Mercedes after Mercedes, and I was like, where are all these cars coming from? And I'd see the same plates over and over and over everywhere I went. So I started to actually write it down, the license plate numbers of these cars, and I'd come up with about 15 or 20 within a couple of days that I would see over and over and over again, no matter where I went. And I mean, I'd drive 50 miles from my house, and I'd see the same cars. And I'm like, what is happening? And I'd even get to the point where, like, I'd start to look at a car, and if they saw me looking at them, one would pull off the road into a parking lot as another one pulls out from that parking lot. And they would kind of continue that, like, little, look like a handoff relay where, like, one would pull out, one would pull in, and there was always, they would never stop tailing me, but they made it look like there were different people. So I started to get really, really paranoid about it, and I mentioned it to some people. I said to my parents, and I have a buddy who's like a lieutenant in the police force here. Not really a buddy, just an acquaintance. But I asked him if he could help me out with it and find out what's going on. He said he hadn't heard anything, but he said if I got him the plate numbers, he would run them for me and see if he saw anything. So I sent him about 10 of these license plates, and he said no, none of them come up as police officers or anything. So I don't know. I think you're just paranoid. So I started to wonder if maybe it was just me. So my parents, they all thought I was paranoid. My friend, the couple friends I had thought I was paranoid, until the guy across the street I hung out with I was at his house one night. We were having dinner, just relaxing, and his wife was looking out the window, and she said, "What are these cars out front sitting here on the road?" And I said, "See, I told you guys." And she was freaked out. Like, she was like, "What is happening right now? Are you in trouble or something?" And I said, "I don't know. These people just follow me around and they don't do anything." So after that, I kind of wore my welcome out there because I don't think they wanted that there. So then it was my mother who noticed it next. She was looking out the window one day and she's like, "Adam, this black car has come by like 4 times around this block and stared at the house." And I was like, "Oh man." So she was believing me at this point. So then I asked the cop, I told him, I was like, "Look, this is happening." He's like, "Well, I'll look into it." And he always said, "Man, I can't find anything. I can't find anything." And I mean, I believe him. I don't think it had anything to do with the police. So it really kind of creeped me out. And I ended up moving to South Carolina. I went down to Myrtle's Inlet, Myrtle Beach area. And I was staying down there. And I was supposed to be dating a girl down there, but it was a big mess. I mentioned it before on the show. But so it was part of the reason I wanted to go down there, too, was just to kind of get away from this. It kind of creeped me out. And then while I was down there, I started to notice it again. It was like not the same ones that were up here by any chance, by far, but like I started to notice down there that I was seeing it happen. But at a lesser scale, it would be like 2 or 3 cars that did it instead of being like 15 or 20. So I was like, man, I'm losing my mind. So I pointed it out to a couple of people that I met down there, and they noticed it too. So I'm like, this can't just be me. This is really happening. So I started to think like what I could have done to have this happen. I'm like, nothing came to mind. I was like, I didn't talk to anybody or piss anyone off. It almost felt to me like it was like a group of aliens that looked like humans that were just watching me. As crazy as that sounds, it almost seems like one of the only viable options. Either that or it's some kind of like a military, like a deep dark branch of the military psyop project. I'm not 100% sure what my theory is on this, but I really believe it's happening. And I think part of the problem with this is when it does happen to you, whether it happens all the time or sometimes or just a little bit or a lot, once you start to notice it, it feels like it's happening all the time. You start to look everywhere, and it does make you paranoid. You start to look for every little detail that might be something or might be a person, and it makes you overanalyze everything, and you become extremely paranoid to the point where you kind of get a little scared. And I think it makes matters much, much worse, and you start to think that more people are watching you than they are, or that they're going to do something. And I mean, as far as I know, nothing has been done to me. I've never been harmed or like attacked or anything. It's just very uncomfortable. And, you know, a few times it's kind of, because the cars that I've been followed by, sometimes have gotten in the way of me and I almost fucking hit them. So, I mean, like, that's the only thing that bothers me is that they're just always in your way. Like, one of the times that really got under my skin was I was driving down the road and I saw this car drive by, or he got in front of me and I was following him. And I turned off into a parking lot and went behind a building. It was like a plaza building. There was nobody there at the time. I was just going to go back there and chill out for a second and smoke a cigarette. So I turned around, went behind the building, kind of lose him. Went back there to have a cigarette, kicked my seat back, put my feet up on the dash, and I was having a smoke, just relaxing. And then the guy comes and parks back there, the same car. I was like, well, what the fuck? So then he gets out, he walks up into the building like he's going in there. And he kind of like walks up and down the hallway a little bit. Then he comes back. He's like looking at my car. And then he's going back in. He's walking around. Come back looking at my car. So then I leave. I'm like, forget this. Fire up the truck, take off, leave. And I see him 15 minutes later at another building. He shows back up and he's looking at me again. And I'm like, this has to be someone following me. There's no way. Of all the places to go in this area, this guy's been it twice. So, I mean, I had seen this situation happen time after time after time, and it's gotten to the point where it's like, I can't even handle this. So, anyway, I went to Myrtle Beach. This happened, again, to a lesser scale. Wasn't near as bad, and I know that it was about 4 cars I noticed, and it wasn't until about 6 months, 7 months till I'd been in there. So, whoever's attention I got it while I was down there. It didn't follow me, that's for sure. Then I came back here about 2 years ago. And from when I first came back, I was driving my truck around, and I say about after 2 months, I started to notice it again. It didn't happen for about 2 months. And then when it started happening again, I just blew it off. Like, I almost ignored it because I was just getting tired of being paranoid. So I just ignored it. I mean, I did see them. I saw them a bunch of times, but I just let them have their thing. I wasn't going to let them get to me. And I really just ignored it for like the last year and a half. Then I wrecked my truck not too long ago, and I haven't been able to drive it. So I've been walking everywhere and riding my bike. And I was walking down the street the other day, and these guys kept pointing at me. Like, cars would go by and be pointing at me. Like, you ever seen that, like, movie with the potatoes that grow these little things out and they get in your brain and they take over your body? And then whenever they see one that's not one of them, they point their finger and scream. It felt like that, except without the screaming. They were just driving by and pointing and leaving their finger at me while they drove by. It happened like 4 times in an hour. And then another day, I noticed that this happened for about 4 days, which drove me crazy. Cars would come by and honk their horns right beside me, really loud, or rev their engines. Anything to just be super obnoxious. And they kept honking their horns. I mean, so loud right beside. I was getting to the point where I wanted to throw a rock through a window. And they would do it over. I mean, I'd be walking for 2 hours, put it that. And I would hear, 60 horns. I mean, like, that's uncanny. And then some days I'll go out there and then nothing will happen. I might see somebody, but it's like they play games with you. Like, I don't know what this is. I really wish I could say it's a bunch of crap, but I don't believe it is. I believe this is 100% real, and whatever is going on is planned by somebody, some group, somewhere. It's very real. I think that people should pay more attention. Anyone interested in it should listen to some of these stories that people are saying, because not everybody out there is a schizophrenic or paranoid or on drugs, but there are out there, don't get me wrong. And you can listen to the stories and you can pretty much pick out which ones are the weirdos. It's not real hard. So today I've actually found one that I thought was pretty interesting. It's from the girl's beautiful. She looks well dressed. You can tell she's not a crackhead. She's got a good story, and this is the kind of stuff that happens to thousands of people. So gangstalking, basically, she'll break it down a little bit for you, but they have something called TIs, which is targeted individuals. That means that you are a person that believes you are being targeted by whoever these groups are. Then there's multiple different types of stalking that you get, and the ones I'm talking about is probably the most common, being followed by cars or people, or some people believe they are being hit with weapons, like some kind of sound weapons or microwave weapons. I don't know about all that, possible, but from what all I've noticed was just people watching me. Like, I'd get out of my car and there'd be 2 more cars. Well, here's one more thing I'll tell you about. I notice, like, a lot of the times whenever I leave my house, I'll watch like 3 or 4 cars on the street leave at the exact same time. Or not on my street, but on my block. And then I'll come home, and as soon as I cut that corner to come in down my driveway, 2, 3 cars will come home at the exact same time. Like, to the second. Like, what are the odds at like 8:35 at night, 2, 3 cars on my block just show up right then, all at the same time, pull in? And it just happens over and over and over again at the same time. Not the same time, sorry. The same time these people show up. Anyway, so I'm going to play you this clip from this girl, and then you guys tell me what you think, and we'll go over it after that. So I hope you guys don't think I'm nuts, but maybe I am. But this, to me, it's real. It's got to be real. Because what is this? It's not paranoia. I'm telling you that right now. There is really something happening. What it is, I couldn't tell you. I wish I knew. And if I did, I'd tell you. So anyway, let's listen to this clip here, and we'll come back. Thanks.
Hey guys, it's Cash, and today I'm going to be talking about gang stalking. So, what gang stalking is members, it's community mobbing. It's organized community mobbing. It's when members of a community get together, they have a target, they probably heard a bunch of horrible things about this target, whether they're true or not true. It's just usually some really bad things that would cause a community to come together and harass an individual. I believe that they're receiving money or other benefits from doing things like this. The root of this is spiritual. So if you are going through this without God, then good luck to you. There are a lot of reasons why this happens to people. One reason is if you were living a life of sin and they see you trying to pull away from that life and go to God, this will get you gang stalked in a spiritual sense. In a physical world sense, whistleblowers, tech people that know about how they're mind controlling us with the phones, journalists who have high profile cases that they're covering, they usually find themselves being gang stalked. Psychics, highly intelligent people, free-minded individuals, people they see as revolutionaries, because just basically anybody that they see is going to be a problem in the future, that they deem uncontrollable, basically, is who this is happening to. And it's happening, millions of people are experiencing this. I myself am experiencing it. Some things, the electronic weapons, I'm not really sure. Maybe. I feel like people who have had relatives in MK Ultra, they are test subjects in this gang stalking program now, because they figured if they could do it to the people in the MK Ultra from the 50s and 70s, then they can try it on their relatives just the same. People with PhDs experience this. It's basically 24/7 surveillance of an individual all the time. So I've heard about remote neural monitoring, which I absolutely believe in, because I don't know how, unless it's my cell phone, how they can pinpoint where I am at a specific moment. I'll get up to go out and walk my dog, and then there's people waiting for me outside before I go to walk my dog. So it's basically a 24/7 surveillance of an individual by civilians, people of the community. It's George Orwell's 1984 come true. I don't know, I hated that book. I don't know if any of you have ever read it, but we are living in those times. It is the dystopian society that George Orwell wrote about. And I wanted to come out about this a long time ago, but I needed to get some facts straight first, because I was not sure if it was my ex-narcissist doing this as a smear campaign, to drive me crazy, to discredit me for the blog that I wrote about our relationship. I pretty much came out about everything in a blog, so I needed to make sure the root of it, he probably does have something to do with it, but I needed to be sure before I came out and spoke about it. So I'm getting gang stalked. You can't really just come out and say that without some facts behind it. So I honestly did think it was my ex-narcissist behind the whole thing. I had done research on narcissistic abuse, what was going to happen after the relationship. It was very systematic how everything went down afterwards with that relationship. So I was just waiting for my smear campaign, and I was pretty much living it before I left him, because he had already started to tell friends and stuff that I was crazy, and it was reactive abuse. So I was acting pretty crazy towards the end. But that I needed to see what the difference was between the smear campaign and actual organized gang stalking. And this is way bigger than just a normal, narcissistic smear campaign. So when I first had my first experience after awakening and knew what was going on, weird things were happening. Like synchronicities, people were saying strange things to me. Like this person would mention Charles Bukowski, and then another person would mention it, and then another person. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on? And then finally, when I realized exactly what was going on, was my first experience with street theater. Street theater is an event that is set up, and it's basically to harass the target, is to make the target like feel uneasy and stuff. And this was 3 years to the exact date that I met my ex-narcissist. Okay, let's say his name is Joe. Now I get a call from a Joe. He wants a bachelor party at a house, because I do events. He wants a bachelor party at a house. So I get some of my girls together. We go over there. It's just very strange that Joe is calling me exactly on the 3-day anniversary of the time I met my ex-narcissist. So already in the back of my head, I'm going in there thinking that this is super strange. And the whole time, the party, they were asking questions that normal parties just don't ask. The guy's fiance's name was my real name, Kristen. So it was just, and they were saying things to me that was mentioned in the blog, things that weren't mentioned in the blog that they shouldn't have known. And this was a very trauma-related situation for me. This was supposed to be a trigger for me. To go and probably call the narcissist or do something crazy, and act out, because I felt like it was a setup from the narcissist, but I actually kept my cool because I didn't know. I just wrote it off as it was really strange. But that was, in fact, my first encounter with street theater. So a month or so later, this stuff kept on happening, and I snapped. And I was like, you know what? Like, we've been broken up. Like, just leave me alone. I don't understand why you're still doing this to me. And I apologized to him for everything that I did. And I'm just like, it's been 2 years. I understand that you're upset about the blog, but this is like sadistic, psychotic stuff. Like, you need to just let it go. And the whole time I'm thinking it's him, but it really wasn't. Maybe he had a little bit to do with it, but it was much bigger than that. So there was just a lot of things that happened in this time that was making me think that he was behind all of this. So I was enraged, because he had moved on. I'm trying to move on with my life, and here I am getting bombarded with things that are reminding me of this person, and just making me every day have to deal with this, which I'm kind of thankful for, because it helped me to not run from it and deal with it. But at the same time, I'm like, this is very strange. I was just very confused. So another couple months go by. We're actually present time. New Year's Eve rolled around, and I was triggered by a picture I saw in my timeline of an event that happened. We filed restraining orders on each other. That triggered me. It made me very upset, because I felt like he did that on purpose. I was going to be harassed and stalked by people in the community, and then he filed a restraining order, because who's going to believe somebody that has a restraining order filed against them that they're actually being harassed and stalked? So it just kind of made me think, maybe it is him. And I just freaked out. I was like, this shill puppet, why is he still doing this to me? But what happened after that? So I kind of flipped into my alter ego. So if you watch my video on MK Ultra Mind Control Monarch, you'll understand what I'm talking about by flipping. So 3 days I was in this alter ego state, and just on a tear. You know, I went out with a friend of mine for dinner. And this is, okay, so we went to a nightclub, and then I went to the bathroom. I come out. There's a man waiting for me outside of the bathroom. And he asked me, what's your nationality? Are you Serbian? And right then, the club just like froze. And I was like, what just happened? And it all just clicked to me. Someone in New York had asked me if I was Serbian. Somebody, or Lebanese, somebody here is asking me if I'm Serbian. So that phrase, what are you, was supposed to flip me into something else if I was intoxicated. And I would go into that altered persona. So I realized then it's not him. There's something more to this. This is spiritual. Like, there's no other explanation for it. And I had a dream about my grandpa being in the MK Ultra mind control program. He told me in my dream, and it was just, I woke up from the dream, and it's just, how many signs do you need, Cash? I just keep getting hammered with all these signs. I feel bad that I went off on the narcissist the way I did, if he doesn't really have much to do with this. But I mean, what would you think? I just feel like I need to stand up and advocate for this, because I see what's going on, and there's so many people out there that can't speak up for themselves, that don't know what's going on, and then they're going to doctors and they're being diagnosed as, you know, delusional or schizophrenic or seeing things, and that's really not the case. And the sad part about this is the cops are involved in this. The people that are supposed to protect and serve you, they're in on it. Lawyers, doctors, especially psychiatrists, people like that. Like, what happens when the TI, you know, gets in a reactive state and does something stupid? They got to get a lawyer. Then the judge is going to tell them, go seek counsel. Doctor is going to misdiagnose them and put them on medication. This is really happening. This is like a huge money-making thing that's happening. So I feel like the reason for my targeting is because I am trying to get out of the industry, the adult industry that I'm in. I feel like my programming is wearing off. And when your programming wears off, what do they try to do? Like they do these Hollywood celebrities when they can't control them anymore. They try to drive them crazy. They do drive them crazy because they want you to end up in a mental institution, or they want you to, you know, or they're hoping that you just kill yourself, because that's really what the end goal is here. They use your past traumas and all the information that they've collected about you against you, and they hammer it with you every single day. And that's how I know that it's something much more than a narcissistic smear campaign. This is gangstalking, and it is spiritual as well as governmental. So I've been watching a lot of videos on Edward Snowden, the whistleblower, and it's just really insane, the state that our country is in. It's sickening, really, you know, that they attack citizens, innocent people like this. And that is why I feel like I have to stand up and, you know, voice what I'm going through, what I have gone through, because I've kept kind of a record of everything. So
So, you hear what I'm saying? Like, these experiences are happening to people. They really are. And she doesn't sound crazy. I believe her. Like I said, I've gone through the same thing, so I know that I'm not the only one. And she seems to think it's members of the community that have come together. Well, that's very possible. I never really thought about it that way. It could be like a Masons or something, like some group that meets together, or it could be, I don't know, just people who know each other. Very interesting, I'll tell you that. Very interesting. And on that note, we're going to go a little bit further with this. I went to a bar yesterday to have a few drinks, sit down, and just talk to some people. Like I said, I don't know anybody, so it's fun for me to talk to just random people. And I met an old man, I'd say old man, about in his 60s. And he had a couple friends there that they're 60s, 70s. And I got talking to him. And turns out he was a retired detective for the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And I asked him if he was a Mason. And he said, yes, he was. So I started, quoting off some of the stuff I know about the Masons because he was being real silent about it. And he was kind of shocked about it. He was like, wow, you do know a lot. So anytime I asked him a question, though, he wouldn't answer it. He would not answer anything I asked him when it came to the Masons. I was shocked by the tight-lippedness of this guy. I mean, I guess I don't know too many Freemasons. My uncle, my grandfather are all 33rd degree Masons. They're way up in it, but I've never been interested in it whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, so you start talking. So I was just kind of asking him some other questions. I asked him if the Earth was flat. He said no. I just had to. I mean, why not, right? But I never thought to ask him about this. Next time I go there, or next time I think I'll go next Saturday, and I'll see if he's there. And if he is, I'm gonna ask him about this stuff. Because he's been around a long time. He's been a detective. He said he's done a ton of jobs like that, being cops. And, I mean, if this is really happening, he might know something about it, especially being a Freemason. So, I don't know. He was there when I got there, so I don't think he was following me or anything. I just happened to believe that. I just sat beside a guy that was pretty cool, and we talked. So, yeah, very tight-lipped. The Freemasons don't talk about being a Freemason. That's very interesting. So, anyway, yeah, so I'm going to look into this gangstalking stuff some more. I'm going to keep studying. If I find anything else about it, I'll let you know. I'll have another podcast or something if I find any big breakthroughs or anyone else that I talk to that has any good stories. I didn't want to bore you guys with 10 clips from different people out there because it's hard to tell. And a lot of people they just ramble on for hours about how angry they are, and I don't want to hear all that right now. I just wanted to hear one good story for you guys that sounded credible, and you guys can look up the video. It's on YouTube. She's a beautiful girl. If you're interested in looking into it, check that one out first, and you could go from there. But anyway, I just wanted to do a little episode about it and see if anyone else out there has had this experience, and if you have, write me. I'd love to hear your stories. I'll put them on there. RebelAngelRadio@gmail.com. Let's see, what else can we talk about here today? I know. When I was at the bar yesterday, I talked to this guy who doesn't live too far from me, probably about 4 or 5 miles. He said he owns 55 acres. And I got talking to about one of the guys at the bar about cryptids. Of course, my favorite topic. And he said, I have a question for you. Have you ever seen anything like this? And he pulls his phone out. And he has a camera, like a photo album on his camera, or his phone, and he shows them to me, and he's got these huge wolf footprints in the snow. He says right by his house, you can see where they're walking, and he has them like his hand down beside it and his hat, and they are massive. I'd say probably 8 inches across it. I mean, just guessing, it's hard to tell on a phone. But he was like, I've never seen anything like that before. He's like, I think it's a really big lynx. I said, no, man, that's a werewolf. He said, you think so? I was like, yeah. I was like, look at that, man. He's like, yeah, I guess you're right. That's a little crazy, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, that's way bigger than a regular wolf, man. I've seen a wolf around here, but that's huge. He said, yeah, man. He's like, I've seen some weird stuff back in there before, and I keep hearing about people seeing these things. I'm like, man, I've got some game cams. Do you care if I ever come up to your property and put them out? He's like, no, please do. I was like, well, email me, and then I'll come by this week or next week or something, and we'll throw them in there. So we'll see if he emails me, but if he does, I'll go out there and I'll stick them up. But either way, I know a few more other places I want to check out, too. I believe all across the escarpment is the same thing, and he lives right beside the escarpment. 55 acres that lead into the escarpment. So that's where these things are over here in Milton. Now, they're coming out of those mountains. There's caves in them. Tons of caves. There's honeycomb with caves. So that's where all these creatures are, I believe. These caves probably lead underground. I think a lot of these Bigfoot and Dogman, all these creatures you see, I think they're all coming from underground. They've probably been down there for thousands of years. maybe they stayed down there for protection from human beings, or maybe they're just now coming out from, being down there since like, who knows when, who knows? I have no idea. I wish I could tell you, but definitely cool picture. I couldn't believe it. It blew me away because I was just had this, an episode of 2 weeks ago about, my experience over here in the escarpment, and then I just run into this guy, and he's got photos of these feet from the dogmen. Unreal. If I talk to him again, I'll have him send me that photo, and I will put it online for you guys. I'll put it on the I'll put it on Rebel Ranger Radio, or I'll put it on a YouTube video. Because I'd really like you guys to see it. It is incredible. I mean, I'd never seen real dogman footprints before. I'd heard about them, but I've never seen them, especially not from somebody I know. I've seen maybe one online or something, but from a guy I just met at the bar who didn't even know what the dogman was. He's sitting there like holding a photo of the footprints, massive footprints. I was like, wow. Anyway, I thought that was super freaking cool. I'd like to hear some more of your stories. I got a couple that I'm gonna read to you. I'm debating whether I should just do another listener story episode, because I'm getting a lot of these stories. I wish we could get some people on here. I wish people would want to do interviews. It's hard to get interviews for me. I know guys like Wes Germer and Tony Merkel and all those guys. They get hundreds of them. I can't get one. So yeah, I got one actually. I'll take that. I'll put that one up this week. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to talk to you about the gangstalking thing and to let you know about the dogman footprints. I thought that was trippy. So I'm going to take a expedition in the next few. It's been a little bit cold the last couple days, but next time it warms up, I'm going to take an expedition out to the escarpment and see if I can find anything. I'm going to bring a camera along and see if I can get some pictures for you guys. And see if I have any promising leads. Maybe some people out there will say something to me. But until then, I guess I'm going to let you go, folks. Thank you for listening. I know it's a short episode. I just want to do the gangstalking thing, and I don't want to turn it into a 2-hour fiasco. So everybody have a great week. I'll have another episode out probably in a day or two. This was kind of just like a smaller bonus episode. So anyway, have a great day, guys. RebelAngelRadio@gmail.com, and I'll talk to you shortly. Love you guys.
Some people ask me whose side I'm on. Let no one know until you're gone. Now if you can be with me, you're feeling strong. You're feeling strong. And when they ask me, oh, why don't you see it? I feel that if I knew that I spent every night with you, I'd follow blindly. With you to guide me. Ooh, 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 ooh,
Thank you for listening to Rebel Angel Radio. We'll be trying to put out as many of these casts as we can. I need more people to come in and send me their messages. I need messages about these encounters you're having, guys. I need all the encounters: Rake, Dogman, Bigfoot, I don't care what it is, aliens. I want to hear it. I want to hear how terrifying it was. I want to know all the details. I'll put it on the air. You can be on the air, or we can just talk. I don't care. I'm just fascinated by this stuff. Anyway, guys, holler at me, RebelAngelRadio@gmail.com. RebelAngelRadio@gmail.com. And hopefully I'll see you. We'll talk soon. Alright, this is Pure Silver, Rebel Angel Radio. Truth is pain. It's gonna hurt a lot. Love you guys. Have a great week.